What's up? It's ADR back with ADR Sports TV, and I am here on this Saturday of Premier League footy. We are about to talk about Chelsea versus Sunderland and Newcastle versus Fulham. These are the first two games of this Saturday. They are obviously at different times here in the U.S. They're at 10 a.m. here, and I had two different channels going on. The first half was kind of hard for me to catch, but I caught the second half of both of them and was able to put together some analysis and kind of go over some things with you guys, right? Chelsea, a huge loss against Sunderland. I bet nobody saw that one coming. But the biggest thing that I noticed about Chelsea is they're starting to look more confident, but the problem is I think it's against the different teams, right? So against the bigger teams, your Man Uniteds, your Arsenals, well, typically recent years, they haven't really been showing up against Arsenal. But, the bigger teams, the top 16s, top 8 teams, it's a little bit easier for you to get up for. You know what I mean? That's what I'm realizing in this Premier League. And I think that Newcastle had a problem with it today on Fulham, but we'll touch on that here in a bit. My biggest thing with Chelsea is I feel like their ability to get up for games that they know are going to separate them. So basically like those tournament games, right, that are going to separate them from looking like the other top 5 sides. They're able to win those games. But again, those games that you're supposed to win if you're going to challenge for a title, your Sunderlands, your Fulhams, your West Hams, sometimes even your Aston Villas, Brightons, things like that, those games need to be your clear winners, right? So Chelsea had a little bit of a struggle period in the first half, right? I felt like they had some good opportunities, some good play, some movement, things like that. And even in the second half, in my opinion, right, this is, again, all just my opinion, I feel like Chelsea was a little bit too reliant on going down the sides, going down the wings, going down the channels, which I'm starting to understand that I feel like a lot of the teams in the Premier League are starting to utilize that because a lot of teams are starting to overload the midfield, right? Everybody wants to get 3 midfielders or even have an additional 4th midfielder in there, which I think is clogging up a lot of the ability that we had in the previous years to play between the lines. I still think there are opportunities for teams to be able to do that, but I think they're so caught up on the congestion within the midfield that they're just naturally going down the sides to their wingers, right? So I think that's something that we're noticing within the Premier League, along with what you see Sunderland doing, which is utilizing the long balls and the long throws. Now, you do see that it did work. Sunderland on their second goal, their game winner, 90th minute from Talby, what they did is they played a deep ball. I honestly thought it was a clearance from their defensive midfielder all the way up, but they had their 9 play high, which is smart. A lot of these lower teams are now starting to, instead of like Burnley a couple years back when Vincent Kompany brought them to Premier League, trying to play through Premier League teams who have better players for that play style, they're starting to actually use their brain a little bit, and they're starting to realize, okay, let's go on a little bit more transition. We're not playing sloppy. We're being a little bit more direct, which a lot of these teams that are in the top 6 aren't built for, right? So that is very smart by Sunderland. They've got somebody who is more experienced in Granit Xhaka that's able to make these during the game adjustments, right? And Chelsea, yes, they made during the game adjustments as well. Maresca did make some substitutions. I thought his substitution to take João Pedro wasn't very good, nor Pedro Neto. But, I think he should have kept those creative players while adding Esteval in there. But, that's neither here nor there. Chelsea fans, you let me know in the comments down below if you are happy with some of Maresca's substitutions. I know you guys have had some problems with that throughout the season and some games prior to some of his substitutions and the decision-making throughout the games. But, I actually predicted Chelsea to be one of the challengers of the Premier League title this season just due to Maresca, their ability to now have a couple years under their belt with the core group of players, your Caicedo, your Enzo Fernandez, your Cucurella. Reece James is getting back in the fold. Cole Palmer is coming back from injury. I know that's big for Chelsea, but I just expected a little bit more from them to be able to beat Sunderland. I wouldn't say it was toothless or they lacked the fight. I do think that they lacked ideas until Esteval came on. And then I wouldn't say they were too heavily reliant on Esteval, but what I would say is I just felt like their end product was lacking throughout the whole game, and it didn't increase as you would think it might from the substitutions. Now, I don't know if that's the lack of the, on the manager for his lack of nuance and game experience that, some Chelsea fans have kind of alluded to. But, you guys let me know down below. But big win for Sunderland. Let's give them their plaudits. They played well. They stuck to what their manager's tactics were. They stayed strong. They fought. They were happy with the point, but they didn't stop fighting for 3. which is big, right? You see some of these teams who are newly promoted and they're happy with that 1 point. And so they put all 11 on behind the ball. Well, Sunderland said, hey, look, there's still some opportunity for us to be able to sneak this out. Chelsea's defense isn't quite there for a Premier League title yet. So, hey, look, let's see what we can exploit. They were able to exploit it, and a great finish, bottom right corner to win the game for them. And now we're going to switch over to Newcastle versus Fulham. Now, for me, I have my quarrels with Newcastle. Reason being is just because I feel like it's so easy for them to get up for the games at St. James's Park for teams that are the top 6 sides, that they know they're going to be battling, fighting, doing all this. But when it comes to teams who they're supposed to dominate, I feel like they lack in that department. Now, they won 2-1, right? Bruno Guimaraes with the game winner in the 90th minute. I'm not sitting here saying that it's terrible, that Newcastle were terrible. I'm just missing from them what they had last season was that player whose ability to just switch and take over the game that they may not have. Now, they may have somebody who can switch and take over the game and win them that goal. I won't necessarily call that, taking over the game. I would call that a moment of brilliance, right? But they just seem like they're lacking that one player that can possibly dig them out. Now, they're doing well. They started a little bit sluggish in the beginning of the season, but they're starting to find wins and starting to find a little bit more rhythm. But I also think that what's taking on a little bit of toll for both Chelsea and Newcastle is the 2 games a week. Now, Chelsea had it last year, but there's a difference between the Conference League and the Champions League, which Chelsea fans will know. You guys have won 2 of them, right? So the biggest thing that Chelsea just needs to do is, while they're putting these new young players in, is also understanding these are new young players that haven't been in the Champions League. They're, still rotating between the Champions League and the Premier League. Maresca still trying to find certain patterns, certain, chemistries and things like that. And speaking of chemistry, great debut goal for Garnacho, right? I believe this was his first goal for Chelsea. Let me know down below, Chelsea fans, if I'm messing that one up. Great finish, drags it onto his left foot, goes between the keeper's legs. Maybe the keeper could have done better, but as a striker myself, I know if you keep it low and hard, it has any opportunity to go anywhere. So he did that. He followed what he was supposed to follow, and there we go, right? Garnacho looks weird to me though. He looks like a skeleton for Halloween. Like he looks he looks like he's just bones in the face. But that was just something I noticed. I just want to throw that out there. I don't know, something's off about him, but not him, but his appearance to me just looks a little bit different. But he got his goal. I know Chelsea fans may or may not be happy with that. I guess you can kind of let me know how you guys are feeling about that. I know it was kind of mixed. Some Chelsea fans were saying, "Oh, that's great potential," but you guys already have a lot of potential players. And some Chelsea fans were like, "This signing's stupid. Why are we doing this?" Let me know what you think down below. I think that I don't really rate Garnacho, if I'm being honest. I was about to waffle right there and be like, I don't really rate him. I think he's got, some moments that he can obviously do things, his bicycle kick, things like that, his ability to sometimes take on defenders. I think he's mostly a chicken with his head cut off. But he's not my player, so I don't really care. But I did want to just touch on the gentleman who came on for Fulham. I believe his name is Kevin. Kevin did, left wing, looked very lively. I mean, this dude was slicing between 2 Newcastle defenders. He looked very lively outside the boot. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research, but any Fulham fans that are in the comments, go ahead and let me know down below of what you thought about his performance. It looks like Iwobi is still running things in the midfield through Newcastle, has the ability to float. Looks like he has a little bit more freedom, but or not for Newcastle, for Fulham. Iwobi still in the heart of that midfield, floats on the wings, does his thing. His weight of pass is just terrific still. I think he's such a good player for Fulham. Another person, as you guys know, for whoever is new on the channel, I am an Arsenal fan, but we will touch on everybody. The biggest thing for me is Emil Smith-Rowe. Man, I really thought he was going to go to Fulham and kick on, but it just seems like, even Fulham starting to notice it. I'm not entirely sure. I kind of caught a little bit right. I got to the game right after he got subbed off, so I don't know if it was a knock or anything like that, but it just seems like he's not having the impact that a lot of Fulham fans thought he was going to have, like your Alex Iwobis and so on and so forth. But we covered those games. Now we have Manchester United coming up next, and then we have Liverpool later. We will do reviews after those games as well. Stay along for ADR Sports TV. Like, share, subscribe. Like I said, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, hopefully by the end of this Premier League season. Go ahead, leave a comment down below. Share it with your mom, your dad, your auntie, your brother, your sister, your cousins, your grandma, your grandpa, everybody, man. Let's get after it. This is ADR Sports TV. Peace.